Having lived for 100,000 years, you have outlived all the geniuses of your era, witnessed the rise and fall of countless dynasties, and even seen the servant you once took in on a whim ascend to become a great emperor. Yet when you wake from your 20,000-year slumber and return to your sect, your own disciples and their descendants treat you as an invading fiend. It is only when the remaining remnant soul of great Emperor Xuanji trembles as it emerges and falls to its knees before everyone with a heavy thud that you pat his shoulder in a perfunctory show of comfort. My apologies, I seem to have overslept. Upon hearing this, Yang Ji finds his throat tightening, lamenting that everyone else has departed, leaving the entire burden of the sect upon his shoulders. Very well, very well. You raise an eyebrow and demand to know the state of affairs. Where is everyone else? Are they all dead? How did it fall to you to manage the big picture? You must understand, when you departed all those years ago, the 7 disciples you had taken in were all peak-level powerhouses among the great emperors. By all rights, they should not have passed away before Yang Xuanji. Yang Xuanji lets out a weary sigh, spreading his hands. They have all ascended, master. They have all gone to the immortal realm. So that is the case. You narrow your eyes, scanning him from head to toe, and ask, why did you not ascend? Your innate talent was not lacking. Hearing this, Yang Xuanji clears his throat in embarrassment. Master, did I not remain behind to preserve your legacy? You dare call the state of this legacy a success? You point at him with disdain. Back then, you told him to focus on his cultivation, yet he refused to listen, spending his days frequenting places like the Mandarin Duck Pavilion and the Phoenix Song Tower. Yang Xuanji hastens to explain, his face full of grievances. Master, you do not understand. After those 7 rascals left, this world descended into chaos, with countless demons and heretics crawling out from who knows where, some of whom were old monsters who had lived for 8 or 9 lifetimes, possessing power so absurd it defies logic. It is not that I am weak, I was being explicitly targeted. Upon hearing this, you wave your hand in annoyance. Enough, enough, do not get so agitated. You are down to your final breath, be careful not to talk yourself into an early grave. Yang Xuanji's expression instantly darkens, and with a sigh he whispers, Master, my time is drawing near. Is there any parting gift you wish to bestow upon me? Perhaps a divine elixir that could grant me immediate ascension, or a medicine for eternal life. Looking at his expectant face, you are left speechless. Stop dreaming, I have already prepared a coffin for you. Look at how well I treat you. Knowing your end was near, returned specifically to see you off. Yang Xuanji's spirit instantly wilted like an eggplant struck by frost. Master, please do not jest. I truly thought you had returned to save me. You ceased your teasing and spoke plainly. Very well. The coffin I have brought for you is known as the soul-nurturing casket. Resting within it will allow you to continuously nourish your physical form. As you spoke, you retrieved a transparent crystal coffin from your storage ring. Sleep inside, and once you awaken, your vitality shall be fully restored. Upon hearing this, Yang Xuanji was visibly overjoyed. I knew you were the one who treated me best, master. Then I shall retire to sleep. I leave this chaotic mess of the Changsheng Sect in your hands. At the same moment, in the plaza before the Changsheng Palace, Xiao Jue and Luo Qingxu were strolling side by side. Recalling the handsome and heroic man in white from earlier, Xiao Ju could not help but feel a twinge of curiosity. Who exactly was that man? Why did Master not take action against him? Luo Qingxu, appearing lost in thought, murmured, Why do I feel that he is so familiar? I have this lingering sensation that I have met him somewhere before. Xiao Ju frowned slightly. Surely not, junior sister. I recall you were never one for such things. Why are you acting this way just because you saw a handsome man? Luo Qingxu backhanded him across the forehead. What are you talking about? I truly feel as though I have seen him before. I simply cannot recall the moment. Xiao Ju rubbed his forehead and muttered, Now that you mention it, he does seem remarkably familiar, though I cannot place where. Lost in thought, the two inadvertently found themselves standing before the massive statue in the center of the plaza. They looked up in unison. In an instant, their pupils constricted, and it was only after a long silence that they managed to utter, Impossible. Just then, with a resonant clang, the grand protective formation shrouding the entire Changsheng Sect vanished into thin air. The Emperor's soul that had permeated the sect dissipated like smoke in the wind. The expressions of Xiaojue and Luo Qingxu changed drastically, and they transformed into streaks of light, racing toward the Changsheng Palace. Shortly thereafter, the other elders and disciples within the sect noticed the anomaly and began flooding toward the Changsheng Palace. Within moments, the Changsheng Palace was packed to capacity. Everyone stared at you as you lounged lazily upon the throne, their eyes filled with utter astonishment. Who is this man? Each of them pondered this in secret. After this youth in white and the ancestor Xuanji entered the hall, the ancestor's emperor soul had vanished. Could it be that this man shattered it? After all, he had previously breached the mountain gates and withstood the combined onslaught of countless disciples without a single scratch. He was truly too powerful. If it were truly his doing, there was nothing anyone could do about it. At this thought, a sense of sorrow could not help but stir within everyone's hearts. Was the Chang sect truly destined to collapse from this point on? At this very moment, Xiaojue and Luo Qingxu walked directly before the crowd. In unison, they declared, Disciple Xiaojue and Disciple Luo Qingxu pay their respects to the Founding Patriarch. The others present were stunned. What Founding Patriarch were they speaking of? Had he not gone missing over 20,000 years ago? Furthermore, the person standing before them appeared so young. Suddenly, as if realizing something, everyone immediately swept their divine sense toward the statue in the plaza. Heavens, no wonder this person was so imposing. It was indeed the founding patriarch. A moment later, everyone bowed respectfully, chanting in succession, "Greetings, patriarch." You sat lazily upon the throne and smiled. "Everyone, rise." Xiaoju asked with some hesitation, "Patriarch, may I ask about our master?" You lowered your head and glanced at him. "Your master has gone into a deep slumber from this day forth. If the Changsheng Sect faces any matters, simply report them to me." Xiaoju heard this and muttered in confusion, "A deep slumber. Does this mean eternal rest or perhaps?" You perceived their doubt and explained, "In short, he has not perished." Upon hearing this, the crowd felt a burden lifted and heaved a sigh of relief. After all, they held deep affection for the old ancestor Xuanji. You swept your gaze over the crowd and asked, "Who is the current great elder of the Changsheng Sect?" No sooner had you finished speaking than an elderly man, full of vigor, Qingxu stepped forward, reporting to the patriarch, "I have served as the great elder of the Changsheng Sect." You looked at him, nodded, and instructed, "So you have been managing the sect's affairs until now? Then continue as you have. If there are any matters you cannot resolve, come find me." Shen King bowed in obedience, feeling a great weight lifted from his heart. After all, the soul of the old ancestor Xuanji had dissipated and surrounding forces were surely waiting for an opportunity. Without a powerhouse to suppress them, the sect would be in grave danger. You then looked at Xiao Jue and Luo Qingxu, saying, "From now on, the two of you shall follow me." Upon hearing this, their hearts surged with excitement. To cultivate under the guidance of the patriarch was truly a heaven-sent opportunity. At this moment, you added, "Oh, that's right, from now on, just call me Sectmaster. Patriarch makes me sound like some ancient relic." The second day arrived, and you were lying on a rattan chair at the rear mountain, leisurely sipping tea while Xiaojue and Luo Qingxue stood behind you, reporting the current situation. Currently, besides yourself, the Changsheng Sect possesses only 6 experts at the Saint Realm. The Great Elder is at the peak of the Saint Realm, while the others are merely at the early or middle stages of the G Saint Realm. This decline did not happen overnight. You shook your head. Had you not returned, it is highly probable that the Changsheng Sect would have been carved up by other forces. You then inquired about the cultivation techniques and martial arts manuals left behind by your 7 disciples. Xiaoju replied that they had left behind stone tablets containing their insights, but the difficulty of comprehension is immense. Only the master and the 2 of them could fathom them. Why did those 7 brats make it so difficult to inherit? You muttered with a hint of resentment. If the cultivation techniques and martial arts were already in hand, then all that remained was a lack of resources. That, however, would be simple. Very soon people would bring them right to your doorstep. The saintess of the Fentian sect, Fen Yanran, has arrived for a visit. Just then, a voice suddenly echoed over the Changsheng sect. You looked toward the sound, seeing several figures in red robes flying in from the distance. So soon, it seems some people cannot sit still any longer. Saying this, you stood up and headed toward the Changsheng Hall. "Follow me and let us see." The Fentian sect is a force that began its ascent 6,000 years ago. Legend has it that their founder Fen Jin was originally an ordinary minor cultivator. During a daring excursion into a certain secret realm, he chanced upon the inheritance of the phoenix, completely transforming his bloodline and, from that point on, establishing the Fentian sect. After generations of diligent expansion, the founder Fen Jin even achieved a breakthrough into the Quasi-Emperor realm 2,000 years ago. Since the Fentian sect has risen to become a peak power in Qingzhou. At this very moment in the Changsheng Sect's plaza, space began to fluctuate and 4 red-robed figures descended with a thunderous, oppressive aura. The woman leading them possessed an extraordinary temperament, her cultivation at the middle stage of the Jizun realm, and her gaze was filled with peerless arrogance. This woman was none other than the saintess of the Fentian sect, Fen Yanran. Having awakened the unique primordial divine phoenix physique just after coming of age, her talent for cultivation could only be described as terrifying. Fen Yanran swept her gaze across the surroundings, the corners of her mouth curling into a sneer. They do not even possess a sect-protecting formation. It seems the ancestor's intuition was not wrong. The final trace of great Emperor Xuanji's soul had truly dissipated. She mocked them without reservation, showing no regard for the members of the Changsheng Sect. After all, if the Changsheng Sect no longer possesses great Emperor Xuanji, can it still be called the Changsheng Sect? Immediately after, Fen Yannian and her companions entered as if there were no one else present, walking arrogantly through the crowd and into the Changsheng Hall. Following her were 3 experts of the Wise Saint Realm, among whom one elder had reached the peak of the Wise Saint Realm. It was clear they did not come with good intentions. Grand Elder Qingxu stepped forward firmly, a forced smile on his face as he probed, "May I ask what brings the saintess of the Fentian sect here to honor us with her presence?" Fen Yannian walked to the center of the hall with a haughty expression. She tilted her chin and coldly uttered 2 words, "Engagement annulled." These 2 words exploded within the Changsheng Hall like a thunderclap. The expressions of everyone in the Changsheng sect turned instantly grim. You lounged lazily on the throne above the main hall, lowering your voice to ask Xiao Juo, "What is the meaning of this charade?" Xiao Ju's expression was awkward. He leaned in close to whisper in your ear, recounting the entire situation in detail. 2 years ago, Yang Xuanji knew that he did not have long to live, so he presented a Quasi-Emperor weapon as a betrothal gift to the Fentian sect to propose an alliance, hoping that after his passing, the Fentian sect might offer some protection. The intended couple were, of course, the saint son of the Changsheng Sect, Xiaoju, and the saintess of the Fentian Sect, Fenyannian. At that time, the ancestor of the Fentian Sect agreed readily. His hands did not even tremble when he accepted that quasi-emperor weapon. Who could have expected the moment great Emperor Xuanji's soul dissipated? The people of the Fentian Sect concluded the ancestor was truly dead, and they arrived at the doorstep immediately to demand an annulment. You must understand that annulling an engagement in the 9 provinces continent is a grave humiliation. If the engagement were truly broken, the Changsheng Sect would have no dignity left in the cultivation world. Hearing this, you could not help but roll your eyes in silence. Why does that old man Yang Xuanji always involve himself in such reputation-ruining affairs? At this moment, Fenyannian below paid no heed to the reactions of those around her. She calmly raised her head to look toward the throne high above the Changsheng Hall. With that single fleeting glance, she was suddenly stunned into silence. Good heavens. How could a man be so handsome? Fenyannian's eyes instantly sparkled with infatuation, and she thought to herself, perhaps annulling the engagement is not entirely necessary, as long as the fiancé is changed to the one sitting above. The next second, she hurriedly shook her head, silently chiding herself for being foolish. No, I cannot lose sight of the primary objective. Having nearly allowed Nansei to derail the grand objective, she took a deep breath, struggling to suppress the agitation within her heart, and her face returned to its cold, icy composure. Watching the woman below change her expression as easily as flipping a book, you waved your hand with indifference. You wish to annul the marriage, is that it? That is no problem, as long as you remember to return that quasi-emperor weapon. Fen Yanren and the others had their expressions shift instantly upon hearing this. That was a quasi-emperor weapon. It was a piece of fat that had already reached their mouths, and having swallowed it, they were naturally loath to cough it back up. After all, since Yang Xuanji was already dead, they figured that if they simply refused to return the weapon, there was nothing anyone could do about it. Furthermore, before they departed, their ancestor had explicitly instructed them that this mission was to eliminate the people, not to return any treasures. You keenly captured the hesitation on their faces, raised an eyebrow, and looked at them with a mocking smile. Well, is there a problem? Who would have expected that old man of the Supreme Saint Realm, his face covered in deep wrinkles, to let out a sneer? Haha, Changsheng Sect, to demand back a gift already given away? Following that, he assumed an air of righteous indignation. Now that the emperor's soul of your ancestor has dissipated, the Changsheng Sect is nothing more than a piece of fat, with countless hungry wolves lurking at your doorstep. Our Fentian Sect taking a quasi-emperor weapon is an act of kindness, helping you alleviate some of the pressure. What? Do you still dare to turn against us? You rubbed your chin, unable to stop yourself from cursing inwardly. Excellent, is this not blatant daylight robbery? Although a quasi-emperor weapon was no different than worthless dust in your eyes, this behavior of treating others like fools to be toyed with filled you with utter disgust. So you confirmed it once more. You truly do not intend to return that quasi-emperor weapon? If you do not return it, what can you possibly do to me? The old man maintained the expression of one who was beyond fearing the consequences. Is it possible that your Changsheng Sect truly desires to declare war on the Fentian Sect, so you will not return it? In that case, the matter is much simpler to resolve. Before your words had even faded, you casually raised a single finger. The very next second, with a thunderous boom, the old man's body instantly exploded into a mist of blood. What? Fen Yanran and the 2 remaining members were so terrified that their entire bodies trembled. The Grand Elder was a peak-stage Supreme Saint Realm expert. How it happened too quickly. They could not see clearly. Was Yang Xuanji not already dead? In the Changsheng Sect, who else possesses such power? Fenyannian and the 3 others huddled closely together, scanning their surroundings with vigilance, while every member of the Changsheng Sect turned their gaze toward you with reverence. They knew it was undoubtedly their founder who had acted. Just then, another Supreme Saint expert behind Fenyannian finally regained his senses and roared into the air. You dare slay an elder of my Fentia sect? Does your Changsheng Sect desire to be exterminated? Exterminate me? You let out a disdainful scoff. With your strength, you are hardly worthy. As you spoke, you flicked your hand casually, and with a thunderous boom, the shouting expert followed in the footsteps of the others, once again dissolving into a brilliant mist of blood. This time, Fenyannian and the only remaining Supreme Saint expert were finally struck with panic, both of them drawing in a sharp, cold breath. This peerlessly handsome young man in white robes, his cultivation was truly terrifying. Just as the final Supreme Saint expert was about to open his mouth to beg for mercy or utter a bitter threat, you furrowed your brows and glared coldly at him, and as a result, he departed quite peacefully, failing to even let out a single cry before exploding on the spot. Fenyannian was frightened out of her wits, her entire body rigid in place. She bit her lip tightly, not even daring to breathe, fearing she would follow the path of the previous 3. You cast an indifferent glance in her direction, your tone brooking no argument as you spoke to her. Tomorrow tell him to bring the quasi-emperor weapon here himself. Furthermore, regarding the annulment of the engagement, I must correct you on one point. It is not you annulling the engagement, but rather my Xiaojiu who is casting you aside. Fenyannian lowered her head, trembling, not daring to respond. She feared that if she opened her mouth, she would offend your taboo. Are you mute? You furrowed your brows. Your voice betrayed a hint of displeasure. This nearly caused Fenyannian to lose control of her bladder in fright. She hurried to reply, trembling. Yenian understands. I will certainly convey the senior's words without missing a single syllable. Upon receiving your dismissal, she felt as if she had been granted a reprieve. Her figure flashed, immediately transforming into a streak of light as she fled the grand hall. Every member of the Changsheng Sect present in the main hall gazed at you with faces full of fanaticism. Our patriarch is truly overbearing, such a profound sense of security. Simultaneously, within a main hall of the Fentian sect, the current sect master Fen Li heard the report, and his expression turned as dark as coal. This patriarch of the Changsheng sect. In contrast, Fen Jin appeared far more composed. He looked at Fen Yanian with a sharp gaze and asked, Are you certain you saw that young man in white kill them with your own eyes? Fen Yanian recalled the scene from that moment, taking a deep breath to steady herself. In truth, I cannot say he even struck a blow. I did not even see how the great elder perished. As for the other two elders, I only saw that young man in white point his finger and they instantly erupted into a mist of blood. The ninth elder had just opened his mouth to speak, but after a single glare from him, he exploded as well. Fen Jin fell into a deathly silence upon hearing this. After a long while, he slowly uttered a single sentence. That is the hand of a great emperor. Fen Li's heart skipped a beat. Patriarch, could it be that the Changsheng sect has birthed a new great emperor? That is unlikely. Fen Jin stroked his beard, feigning an air of someone who had long since seen through the truth of the matter. It was likely achieved by borrowing the power of some external force. They were perhaps intending to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. It is only a pity that we happen to be that chicken. To go to such lengths to deal with us, they actually expended an trump card left behind by a great emperor. One can only wonder what the Changsheng sect is thinking. As he spoke, he could not help but sigh, seemingly deeply convinced by his own deduction. However, Fen Yanian, standing to the side, muttered to herself in her heart, Is it truly so? The sensation at that moment did not feel like the use of external artifacts, but out of respect for the patriarch, she dared not contradict him. Then what of the Quasi-Emperor weapon on the other side? At this moment, Fen Li asked with visible reluctance. Fen Jin sighed helplessly, waving his hand dismissively. For now, we must settle for what we have. It is better to be a thin camel than a fat horse. The Changsheng sect still possesses a deep foundation after all. There is no need for us to be the first to charge into the fray. Are we simply to let the lives of 3 elders be forgotten? Fen Li gritted his teeth, his resentment running deep. This insult was truly difficult for him to swallow. Yet Fen Jin remained as calm as if nothing had happened at all. Let us set this matter aside for now. We shall discuss it further once I have achieved the breakthrough to the Great Emperor realm. Is the patriarch truly on the verge of breaking through to the Great Emperor realm? Upon hearing this, the gloom on Fen Li's face instantly dissipated. This is monumental news. I shall swallow this insult for the time being. In the blink of an eye, the second day arrived, and the Fentian sect obediently sent men to return the Quasi-Emperor weapon. In the back mountains of the Changsheng sect, you toyed with the Quasi-Emperor weapon in your hand while silently cursing to yourself that this Fentian sect was truly far too cowardly. You had originally intended to annihilate a sect to relieve your boredom. What a pity. You tilted your head back to take a swig of wine, watching Xiao Jue and Luo Qingxu sparring not far away, feeling a trace of admiration in your heart. High positions are indeed lonely. Just at this moment, Shen Qingtians respectfully reporting to the sect master that Qingxu sect has sent emissaries to pay a visit. Which sect? You raised an eyebrow, not having heard the name clearly. The Qingxu sect. Shen Qingtian patiently explained. As of now, this Qingxu sect boasts a total of 2 quasi-emperors and over 10 experts at the Supreme Saint realm guarding their ranks. Their strength cannot be underestimated. Patriarch Xuanji once told us that they have a benefactor supporting them from the shadows. Though Patriarch Xuanji did not specify who it was, he only warned us that if we encountered people from the Qingxu sect, we should try to avoid conflict. However, for the past 100 years, they have become increasingly provocative. Perhaps now they have sensed that the Emperor's soul of Patriarch Xuanji has completely vanished. Their arrival this time is likely born of ill intent. Upon hearing this, the corners of your mouth curled into a look of contempt. The Qingxu sect, they named themselves rather accurately. I only hope they do not disappoint me as the Fentian sect did. Having said that, you stood up and walked toward the Changsheng hall. Upon entering, you saw a young man dressed in ornate, embroidered robes. This fellow had even brought his own chair, sitting there arrogantly with one leg crossed over the other, while behind him stood 5 experts of the Supreme Saint realm, one of whom had even reached the peak of the Supreme Saint realm. As usual, you calmly took your seat upon the throne of the Changsheng sect master. Xiao Jue and Luo Qi stood now. The young man in brocaded robes swept his gaze across the room, appearing momentarily startled. That seat is reserved exclusively for the sect master, yet he could not sense even a shred of aura emanating from you. Harboring secret doubts, the young man in brocaded robes did not dwell on it for long. With a touch of arrogance, he tilted his chin toward you. So this must be the new sect master of the Changsheng sect, is it? I am Qingxu, young sect master of the Qingxu sect. Greetings to the sect master. It is said that the emperor's soul of the Xuanji great emperor within your esteemed sect has dissipated. Our ancestor was deeply grieved, so he specifically sent this junior to pay his respects. As he spoke, he shook his head, his tone laced with a veneer of feigned sympathy. To think of the Xuanji great emperor whose prestige once shook the world ending in such a desolate state. I offer my condolences to you all. No one from the Changsheng sect responded. They merely watched him in silence, observing his performance. For they all saw the words foolish written clearly across Qingxu's face. You narrowed your eyes, assessing him. Why did he look so incredibly punchable? You had originally intended to ask why these people had come, but now you decided against it. Naturally, as your sect's strength has waned, Qingxu continued, his arrogant expression unchanged, preparing to speak boldly. Seeing the sect master, why do you not kneel? Before the words had even faded, your eyes flashed. With a sudden boom, Qingxu below was instantly reduced to dust. Even the chair he had been sitting on disintegrated into nothingness. Seeing this, the members of the Changsheng Sect covered their faces and sighed. Was living such a difficult task? Why were they in such a hurry to follow their young sect master into the afterlife? The 5 Jisheng realm experts who had accompanied him turned pale with shock. One of them roared, "You bastard, where have you sent our young sect master?" Immediately, the cultivation aura of the 5 erupted simultaneously, the terrifying pressure of the Jisheng realm instantly blanketing the area. Yet, just as the pressure was about to reach the disciples of the Changsheng Sect, your gaze swept gently across them. 4 of the Jisheng realm experts exploded on the spot. They transformed into a ghastly rain of blood. In the blink of an eye, only one middle-aged man remained in the courtyard. He had been preparing to strike, but now he stood frozen in place. What had just transpired? You moved like a bolt of lightning, appearing directly before him. The middle-aged man felt as if an ancient, primordial mountain were crushing down upon him, forcing him to kneel onto the ground. You looked down at him from above and asked, coming to the Changsheng Sect, "Was it to accompany your young sect master for a marriage alliance?" The middle-aged man replied honestly, "A marriage alliance between whom?" You furrowed your brow, sensing that there was something peculiar about this situation. The middle-aged man carefully glanced at Luo Qingxue, then trembled as he spoke, "Our young sect master and your sect saintess?" Immediately after, Xiaojie whispered a few words into your ear. It turned out that when Luo Qingxue and Xiaojie were out, they were spotted by Qingxu. Since then, he has been obsessed with her. He thought that by bringing people here this time, he could simply force the Changsheng Sect into a political marriage to satisfy his own filthy and wicked desires. A mere toad lusting after swan meat. If he truly believes he can die without consequence, then he is nothing but a fool worthy of contempt. You narrowed your eyes thinking, is it really just for a marriage alliance? The middle-aged man swallowed hard, stammering, "On one hand, we were sent to propose an alliance to distract you all. On the other hand, we were ordered to secretly seize the 3 spirit veins in the west." As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of everyone in the Changsheng Sect changed drastically. Spirit veins are the lifeblood of a sect, and the 3 in the west are all high-grade, medium-scale spirit veins. "I knew there was no good intention behind this," you remarked. You let out a cold laugh and waved your hand. In the next second, the middle-aged man was instantly obliterated, body and soul. Sectmaster, those guarding the 3 spirit veins, the elders and disciples have all lost contact. At this moment, Grand Elder Shen Qingtang reported with a grave expression. Yet you remained calm, looking toward Shen Qingtang before gesturing for Xiaojue and Luo Qingxue to follow. "Let us go. Lead the way." Understood, the 3 replied in unison, then followed you out of the Changsheng Hall. It was then revealed that the sect had long been coveted by outside forces. At this moment, a man dressed in green robes flew in from the horizon. As soon as he landed and saw Luo Qingxue, a spring breeze smile blossomed on his face. However, when his gaze swept over you, it was as if he had encountered a formidable enemy. You noticed the change in his expression and were inwardly surprised. You had never met this man before. Why did he look at you as if you were a thief? "Yiming, why have you come here?" Xiaoju narrowed his eyes, assessing the refined-looking man in green as he curiously asked. Lu Yiming first bowed respectfully to Grand Elder Shen Qingtang, then immediately shouted with righteous indignation, "I heard that scoundrel Qingxu brought people to your Changsheng Sect to propose marriage. Where is that brat? If he dares to force Qingxu to marry him, see if I don't cleave him in 2 with a single strike of my sword." After speaking, Lu Yiming looked around but could not see the members of the sacred sect. You patted Shen Qingtang on the shoulder and asked about this man's identity. After the Grand Elder's introduction, you realized that this youth was the holy son of the Liu Yun sect. The relationship between the 2 sects has always been excellent. Although Lu Yiming is a close friend of Xiaojue, he is also a persistent suitor of Luo Qingxue. Unfortunately, it is a classic case of the prince's deep affection being unrequited by the goddess. Luo Qingxue has never held any romantic interest in him, so he is merely a sycophant chasing after her? You immediately realized that he must have been worried about the woman of his dreams being forced into a political marriage, and thus he rushed here to play the hero rescuing the beauty. He is truly a man driven by infatuation. At this moment, Xiaoju shakes his head and sighs, teasing Lu Yiming for his late arrival, which causes Lu Yiming to turn pale with fright. He hurriedly urges Luo Qingxue not to marry into that wretched sect, even going so far as to vow that he will take her away to a place where they can be together. Little did he expect to be met with nothing more than a cold glare from Luo Qingxue. Following this, Xiaoju taps him firmly on the forehead, laughing and chiding him, noting that he is hardly a paragon of virtue himself. Lu Yiming learns that the envoys from the Saint Ruin sect failed in their proposal, and only then does he heave a sigh of relief. Afterward, he turns solemn and conveys the message from the Liu Yun sect ancestor to Shen Qingtang, expressing their willingness to stand by the Changsheng sect through thick and thin. At this moment, Lu Yiming's gaze falls upon you. Seeing your excessively handsome face, he suddenly feels a sense of irritation. Xiaoju introduces you with a serious expression, identifying you as the sect master of the Changsheng Sect. Though filled with suspicion, Lu Yiming bravely steps forward to offer a courteous greeting. You observe the discomfort on this young man's face, find it quite amusing, and respond with a light chuckle. Learning that you are about to recover the spirit vein occupied by the Saint Ruin sect, Lu Yiming proactively requests to join the expedition. You glance at him with slight surprise. Although this is an internal sect affair, you nod in agreement, respecting his devotion to Luo Qingxu. Immediately afterward, Lu Yiming prepares to boast about the high-speed flying ship provided by his ancestor, but before he can finish his sentence, he feels the space around them begin to warp. When he regains his composure, he is astonished to discover that he has arrived in an entirely different world. Even Shen Qingtang and the others are left in a state of bewilderment. Only a moment ago, they were in the sect square, yet in the blink of an eye, they have arrived at the spirit vein. This is, of course, your divine technique of teleportation, and transporting others is merely a trivial matter for you. In his state of shock, Lu Yiming pulls on Xiaozhou's sleeve to inquire about your background, but Xiaozhou dismisses the question with a mysterious air. At this moment, Shen Qingtang's divine sense sweeps through the underground chambers, and he reports in shock that the people within the spirit vein have been replaced, with absolutely no corpses or traces of combat left behind. This eerie. If the adversary can occupy a spirit vein in complete silence, it must be the work of a great emperor. You then probe the earth with your divine sense, and with a wave of your hand, you seize them. An old man who was calculating how to exploit the spirit vein suddenly appeared in your grasp. This Saint Refinement Realm expert from the Saint Ruin sect had not even realized what was happening before he found his throat crushed by your grip, unable to move a muscle. Upon seeing Shen Qingtian and the others, he was struck with even greater terror. Lu Yiming stood by, dumbfounded and wide-eyed. You had captured a Saint Refinement expert as easily as plucking a leaf. This sect master is truly formidable. When you demanded answers, you coldly uttered only 4 words. Under your terrifying aura, the old man trembled. Where had his dignity as an expert vanished to? But when you interrogated him about the whereabouts of the everlasting sect, just as he was about to speak, his body suddenly detonated, turning into dust. Seeing this, you furrowed your brows. He had evidently been branded with a spirit restriction, ensuring that if he revealed any secrets, his soul would scatter and vanish. Since no information could be extracted, you no longer stood on ceremony. Within the subterranean spirit vein, a series of continuous explosions erupted. In a single heartbeat, all the disciples of the Saint Ruin sect were reduced to a rain of blood. Immediately afterward, you led the group in a teleportation to another location. The situation was identical. The Guardians did not even have the chance to speak before they spontaneously detonated. This left you quite irritated. Were these people truly so fond of self-destruction? Upon reaching the third spirit vein, you could not be bothered to ask further, directly waving your hand to annihilate every enemy within. Having finished, you turned to speak to the group, who remained frozen in shock. Let's go, I shall take you to wipe out a sect for amusement. Is this fast enough for you? Lu Yiming was visibly terrified. Perhaps I should go call for reinforcements and inform my old ancestor? You maintained a tone as calm as drifting clouds and flowing water, your gaze merely sweeping over the location of the Saint Ruin sect on the map. In the next instant, with a mere shift of your thoughts, the group immediately traversed through space, arriving before the gates of the Saint Ruin sect, where a central peak pierced the very heavens, flanked on both sides by 2 ranges of mountains extending from the south, resembling 4 fingers encircling the central mountain. It is said that deep beneath these 5 peaks, supreme-grade spirit veins are buried, constantly supplying energy to the sect-protecting formation that blankets the entire sect. Gazing at the 5 majestic mountains beneath his feet, Lu Yiming felt his heart thumping wildly. You aren't serious, brother? You actually intend to go through with this? Can I head home now? After a moment of internal struggle, Lu Yiming looked toward Xiaozhou, seeking help and hoping he would persuade you not to act so recklessly. Yet when he saw that both Xiaozhou and Luo Qingxu remained perfectly calm, he could not help but be filled with suspicion. Brother Xiao, why don't you try to persuade your sect master? Do you all truly trust him that much? Lu Yiming tugged at Xiaozhou's sleeve, lowering his voice to ask. However, Xiaozhou merely maintained an enigmatic expression, signaling him to simply watch the show. Lu Yiming shot a frustrated glare at Xiaozhou, before turning his gaze towards you, thinking to himself that this sect master did not appear to be the type of fool who would throw his life away, and decided to stay for the moment to observe the situation. If things turned sour, he would crush the command token so the ancestor might intervene. He stubbornly stepped to your side, feigning composure as he looked forward. At this moment, your divine sense had already swept through the Qingxu sect from within to without. Strangely, you did not discover a single place where the members of the Changsheng sect were being held captive. Could it be that the disciples and elders guarding the spirit veins had all been slaughtered by them? Then why was there not a single corpse left behind? Could it be that they are just like you, both sharing a penchant for reducing their opponents into a rain of blood? You shook your head, recalling the 3 Supreme Saint Realm powerhouses at the previous 3 spirit veins who had inexplicably self-detonated. You vaguely felt that this Qingxu sect was somewhat bizarre. Sectmaster brother, I have heard that this Qingxu sect possesses 6 protective arrays from inside to out, capable of withstanding a full force strike from a great emperor powerhouse for an hour. Have you prepared any artifacts to dismantle these arrays? Seeing you standing there motionless, Lu Yiming silently assumed you were struggling to devise a way to break the formation. I have prepared. You nodded solemnly. He asked where you had produced them from so he could broaden his horizons. Lu Yiming looked at you with curiosity. Right there, he only saw you slowly raise a finger, gently apping against the Qingxu Sect's array ahead. A thunderous roar erupted, and the 6 layers of the formation, reputed to be as impregnable as walls of bronze and iron, were pierced one by one like a thin membrane. Lu Yiming stood frozen in his tracks, murmuring after a long moment, "Is it really that simple?" It seems the formations of the Qingxu sect are nothing more than this. However, regarding this site, Xiao Zhuo and the other two were no longer surprised. After all, these were the methods of their own sect ancestor. "Forget it," you said softly, then took the lead, transforming into a streak of light as you flew toward the Qingxu sect. Shen Qingtong, Xiao Luo Qingxu followed closely behind. Lu Yiming hesitated for a moment before drawing his long sword and gritting his teeth to follow. You personally led the team, intending to wipe out a sect for sport, when suddenly figures began to fly out from the palace to intercept anyone daring enough to intrude. Thick clouds blanketed the sky, yet no sooner had they taken flight when your cold gaze swept across them. In an instant, those figures, regardless of their cultivation level, exploded in midair, transforming into a rain of blood. Witnessing this scene, Lu Yiming stood frozen. What a unique way to be welcomed. At this moment, an expert at the Saint Tribulation realm within the Qingxu Gate felt his heart hammer against his ribs, his gaze locked onto the 5 figures standing leisurely in the sky. When he finally recognized Shen Qingtong, his expression shifted violently. "Everyone, halt! We have enemies!" Hearing this cry, the members of the Qingxu Gate, who were about to charge into the sky to engage the enemy, skidded to a stop. They were struck with sheer terror. Lu Yiming, observing from above, waved his hand in mockery. "Do not stop. Continue to ascend and offer yourselves up. I have yet to see enough of these fireworks." That arrogant and contemptuous expression made the members of the Qingxu Gate gnash their teeth in fury, while Lu Yiming felt nothing but immense satisfaction. Previously, these disciples relied on the support of 2 quasi-emperors to act with impunity, but now it was finally his turn to revel in their downfall. Reflecting on this, he looked at you with eyes full of worship. This sect master of the Changsheng Gate was truly peerless, and what of you? Seeing that the crowd from the Sheng Gate remained stationary on the ground, your gaze plummeted toward the earth once more, and the men of the Shengshu Gate began to explode in succession. Just then, from within the main hall ahead, a figure suddenly soared forth, broad-shouldered and imposing, his face hidden behind a thick, unruly beard holding a golden bell that shimmered with light. It was clearly a quasi-emperor weapon. It was none other than the current sect master of the Shengzhou Gate. You looked at him silently, choosing not to strike immediately. Qing had just intended to open his mouth to question you, but upon seeing Shen Qingtong and the others, his expression turned somber. "It is you." You glanced indifferently at the weapon in his hand and his attire, then said, "Judging by your appearance, your status is likely not low. Answer my questions, and I shall allow you to remain intact." "Such arrogance. I know not who you are." Qingcheng secretly channeled his internal energy frantically into the golden bell in his hand. This was a defensive treasure capable of withstanding a single blow from a great emperor. He narrowed his eyes, assessing you, but even after you identified yourself as the sect master of the Changsheng Gate, he could not fathom your cultivation level. His brows knit together instantly. Since when did the Changsheng Gate possess a sect master? Could it be that he is a hidden trump card, cultivated in secrecy? You have no patience for his nonsense and decide to cut straight to the point. Where have you taken the disciples and elders guarding the spirit vein of our Changsheng Sect? The only reason you kept him alive was to extract information and determine whether he had been subjected to that wretched spirit curse. Unexpectedly, upon hearing this, Qingcheng's expression turned panicked, yet he stubbornly retorted, "I do not know." Your patience ran thin. If he refused to speak, then he would simply have to die. With a wave of your hand, Qingcheng and the quasi-emperor grade golden bell he held so dear instantly exploded into a spray of blood. You peered through the crimson mist toward the main hall ahead, your voice calm. "If you do not emerge now, your Qingxu sect shall face total annihilation." The next moment, 2 terrifying auras descended upon the scene, and 2 silver-haired elders manifested from the void. They were none other than the quasi-emperor twins of the Qingxu sect, Qin Shan and Qin Hai. Witnessing the devastation and their disciples lying dead on the ground, their expressions turned ghastly. Qin Hai examined you with suspicion and unease, finding it impossible to discern your cultivation level. Could you be a great emperor? Though shaken, the 2 relied on the emperor-grade weapons and fusion techniques in their possession, harboring a glimmer of false confidence. You looked at the 2 old men and asked once more, "Since you have emerged, tell me the answer I seek. Where have you taken them?" Qin Shan furrowed his brows and said in a deep voice, "We shall fight. If you win, we will tell you." "Very well." Before the words had fully left your lips, you extended a finger and tapped the air. A thunderous explosion echoed through the heavens. Qin Hai, a mid-stage quasi-emperor, did not even have time to scream before he vanished into a mist of blood without warning. Qin Shan's pupils constricted, his entire being struck with terror. You looked at him and asked indifferently, "Is a fight still necessary?" Qin Shan's expression was grave, yet he struggled to maintain his composure. "Your Excellency is truly formidable. Since you have struck a blow, you must receive one of mine to ensure fairness." You did not lower your guard. You wondered if this old man possessed some hidden ultimate technique. "Fine, show me your move." The longsword in Qinshan's hand began to hum, his aura surging as if he were prepared to risk his life. Lu Yiming and the others behind you retreated in fear, terrified of being caught in the crossfire. At the same time, Qinshan glared at you and roared, "Witness this, one sword," but before the words could finish, the old man turned and fled. What kind of farce is this? With a casual flick of the hand, a quasi-emperor was slain. How could one possibly fight against such power? You stood frozen, taking in the scene for a moment before vanishing from the spot in the very next instant. Qinshan was fleeing in a state of madness, but when he glanced back over his shoulder, finding no one in pursuit, he let out a sigh of relief. Yet, upon turning his head back, he found you standing before him with your hands in your pockets. Shan was instantly gripped by terror, his soul nearly fleeing his body. Just as he prepared to turn and flee again, you reached out and grasped at the void, and his entire body was pulled helplessly into your hand. You seized him by the throat and asked coldly, "Are you ready to speak now?" Qinshan hurriedly begged for mercy. "I will speak," it was Lord Yun Di. Hearing this name, you furrowed your brows slightly. Who is Yun Di? At that moment, a look of extreme horror appeared on Qinshan's face. His entire body trembled violently as he screamed, "He is here," before immediately disintegrating into dust. You frowned, lost in thought as you wondered exactly what kind of entity this Yun Di might be. Suddenly, a voice filled with hidden meaning echoed from behind you. "I am Yun." Immediately after, an eerie man clad in red robes emerged from the void. He unleashed a punch with all his might, the strike carrying an aura of absolute destruction as it slammed into your back. An eerie man in red robes had emerged from the void, delivering a strike meant to shatter everything straight into your spine. With a dull thud, you felt nothing more than a slight itch on your back. Conversely, the red-robed man vomited a great mouthful of blood, his entire arm shattered by the recoil. With a look of shock, he did not hesitate to crush a talisman, and his figure instantly vanished into the void. When you turned around, the space behind you was empty. What a pity. You had intended to put on a show. Had you known, you would not have taken the blow so passively. Meanwhile, Xiaozhu and the others were hardly idle. Instead, taking advantage of the fact that the Qingxu sect was now leaderless, they launched a frantic assault. In this cultivation world of survival of the fittest, to leave weeds uncut is to invite endless trouble. Thus, this group showed no mercy in their slaughter. In the blink of an eye, streaks of sword energy tore through the sky, followed by countless heads falling to the ground. After all, the supreme elder of the Qingxu sect had been killed by a mere glance from you. How could the remaining small fry hope to be a match for Shen Qingtang? With a clear division of labor, the group swept through this so-called top-tier sect in no time at all. Lu Yiming had originally hoped to find a few more opponents, yet to his surprise, there was no one left to kill. Looking at the chaotic scene on the ground, he felt a surge of exhilaration and began to boast to Xiaozhu, convinced that the 5 of them were truly immortals descended from the heavens, having joined forces to topple an entire major sect. You suddenly appeared at the center of the plaza. Gazing at the corpses strewn across the ground, not a single ripple stirred within your heart. Shen Qingtang hurried over, lowering his voice to inquire about the fate of Qinshan. You merely replied with calm detachment that he was dead. He expressed concern, mentioning the elders and disciples who had gone missing. It was then that you remembered the name Qinshan had shrieked before his demise. You stroked your chin in contemplation. In this 9 provinces continent, someone actually dared to style themselves as the Cloud Emperor. Recalling the strange aura emanating from Qinshan, you could even detect a faint scent of immortal traces. If these flies dared to plot behind your back, you could not simply sit idly by. You immediately ordered Shen Qingtang to hand over the maps, preparing to uproot every single stronghold of the Saint Ruins sect. In the time that followed, you denied the guards of these strongholds any chance to react, wiping their entire territory clean in the blink of an eye. Upon returning to the Changsheng Sect, you retreated into the treasury, intent on personally refining medicinal elixirs and enhancing talismans to bolster the sect's foundations. At the same time, following Lu Yiming's return, the Lu Yun sect reached a shocking decision. Not only did he wish to defect from his own sect, but he also shamelessly insisted on joining the Changsheng Sect. His father Lu Chengfeng was so enraged he nearly collapsed on the spot, even pointing a finger at his son's nose to curse him. Yet Lu Yiming acted as if possessed, determined to follow you even if it meant being beaten for his persistence. Little did they know, just as Lu Chengfeng was about to unleash his cultivation technique, the ancestor of the Lu family, Lu Shuzhe, suddenly appeared, and instead of stopping him, he allowed Lu Yiming to join the Changsheng Sect. It turned out that Lu Shuzhe had personally visited the Saint Ruin sect and discovered that the place had indeed been utterly eradicated. Upon hearing this, Lu Chengfeng was struck dumb, never having imagined that such a ruthless and decisive powerhouse existed in this world. A glimmer of awe flickered in the eyes of Lu Shuzhe, for he remembered 20,000 years ago, a terrifying existence revered by all as the Changsheng Immortal Gate. Meanwhile, you were resting leisurely in a pavilion at the back mountain of the Changsheng Sect, eyes closed as you appreciated the drifting clouds beside the precipice. As you cast your gaze toward Xiaozhui and Luo Qingxue, who were busy working upon the pavilion floor. The 2 of them were sorting through a mountain of medicinal herbs, following the prescription list you had provided. You silently calculated that while these raw materials appeared crude, once refined into talismans, they would be no larger than the palm of a hand. With this in mind, you intended to outfit every member of the Changsheng sect with top-tier equipment. Before long, Xiao Jue and Luo Qingxue hurried into the pavilion to report that the materials had been fully organized. Just then, rapid footsteps echoed against the stone stairs, and a figure clad in green suddenly breached the back mountain. The individual gazed at the rare medicinal herbs scattered across the ground, let out an exclamation of astonishment, and then swaggered toward the pavilion. You glanced over, realizing it was none other than that youth, Lu Yiming, returning once more. Before you could even speak, Xiaoju rolled his eyes, teasingly asking if the boy was trying to cling to the Changsheng Sect. Lu Yiming, however, paid no mind. He slumped down into the seat opposite you and, with a grin, proposed joining your faction. Hearing that term, you could not help but frown slightly, as if you were some sort of villainous organization. Xiaoju pulled a stern face and tapped him, warning him to mind his tongue. Yet Lu Yiming spoke with complete sincerity. He had already departed from the Liyun sect and was now a man entirely without master. He insisted that you take in this poor homeless soul. Xu was startled, silently wondering if this boy did not fear his father breaking his legs for such an act. To everyone's surprise, in his eagerness to latch onto your powerful backing, Lu Yiming was even willing to declare that he had severed all ties with his father. Observing his carefree and unburdened expression, you understood clearly in your heart that he must have witnessed you eradicating the Qingxu sect days prior and had been struck with awe by your heaven-defying capabilities. Therefore, you did not bother to expose his ulterior motives. You casually accepted the storage ring he offered, which was brimming with resources plundered from his sect's treasury. Your divine sense swept through it, confirming that the interior was filled with only the finest treasures. Since he had presented such a sincere tribute as a gesture of loyalty, you nodded in agreement. Upon seeing your nod, Lu Yiming was instantly overjoyed, already calculating how he would brave life and death for you in the future. Xiao Ju stood to the side, looking to seize the opportunity to demand that Lu Yiming change the way he addressed him from now on. Lu Yiming merely waved his hand, too lazy to acknowledge him, and instead stared curiously at the pile of herbs, suggesting whether you should invite some experts from the Alchemist Association in Qingzhou to assist. However, you merely offered a faint smile, rose to your feet, and approached the rarest pile of sacred realm herbs, waving your hand with casual precision. In an instant, a surge of power, possessing both rigid and yielding qualities, suddenly surged forth. The next moment, those medicinal herbs spiraled into the air, beginning to rotate in a frantic yet rhythmic dance. At this precise moment, brilliant rays of light erupted from within the alchemy formation. The five-colored radiance shone so intensely that Xiao Zhou and the other two could not open their eyes. In the blink of an eye, the blinding light dissipated, and a fragrance of medicinal pills, concentrated to an extreme degree, suddenly burst forth. When everyone looked closely, they saw more than 20 golden, grade 8 medicinal pills hovering in midair. Each pill was translucent and shimmering, radiating a mesmerizing precious glow. Xiaoju was so astonished that his jaw nearly hit the floor. He understood the significance of grade 8 medicinal pills, for even the most elite alchemist would require half a year of seclusion to refine a single batch. Lu Yiming was even more shattered by this divine technique. His entire worldview collapsed, and he stood frozen like a statue. Not long after, the Changsheng Hall and the plaza outside were filled with people. Xiao Ju and the others began distributing the pills and supplemental resources. Once the distribution was complete, he issued a direct command. All disciples of the sect heed my order, consume the pills collectively. We thank the sect master for the bestowal. All the elders and disciples immediately and excitedly placed the pills in their hands into their mouths. As everyone consumed the medicinal pills, hundreds of disciples and over 10 elders achieved a breakthrough on the spot. The Changsheng Sect instantly gained 13 experts at the Supreme Saint Realm. The next day, Shen Qingtian hurried to the back mountain to report, stating that the subordinate faction, Qingfeng Pavilion, had defected to the Mingwang Sect, and that the Mingwang Sect had seized the medicinal herb garden that the Changsheng Sect had previously entrusted to them. You tilted your head back to take a sip of wine, a cold smile tugging at the corner of your mouth. What kind of insignificant entities are these? Shen Qingtian explained with a grave expression. This Qingfeng Pavilion was originally nothing more than a mere ant in Qingzhou, and they only rose to prominence by managing the medicinal garden for the Changsheng Sect. However, they stumbled upon great fortune, for beneath that plot of land lies an extremely rare piece of myriad essence soil. Growing medicinal herbs there for 1 year is equivalent to 10 years anywhere else. Therefore, relying on this precious land and the protection of the Changsheng Sect, Qingfeng Pavilion gradually became a renowned force in Qingzhou, and has now even ascended to the ranks of a holy land, guarded by 5 experts at the Wisdom Saint Realm. Yet 3 days before the 10-year tribute was due, they chose to vanish without a trace. Yesterday, when disciples were sent to inquire, they turned hostile immediately, declaring that from this day forward they would serve a new master and join the Mingwang Sect. As for the Mingwang Sect, it is the only emperor-level orthodoxy in Qingzhou today, a truly gargantuan force. Their ancestor, the Ming Emperor, successfully attained the Tao 5,000 years ago. It is said that when the Ming Emperor first ascended as an emperor, he sought out the ancestor Xuanji to challenge him to a duel. That man's combat prowess was ferocious, and in the end ancestor Xuanji was defeated by half a move. Hearing these words, you helplessly shake your head, recalling how, back in the day when your own 7 disciples had just attained the Tao and became emperors, every one of them had used the heads of the old emperors to cement their own fame. This young Xuanji is something else. He has allowed others to trample upon the reputation of the Changsheng Sect to build their own. Naturally, one cannot entirely blame him. In the past, the Changsheng Sect was the supreme hegemon tasked with overseeing the world. Every newly ascended emperor wanted to come here to prove their strength. Consequently, ever since Yang Xuanji became an emperor, he was forced to engage in one battle after another. This is exactly what led to his life force being depleted so rapidly. But you have no interest in these trivial matters. As long as your fist is hard enough, it matters not how many people come to challenge you. The next moment, you slowly stand up and say, "Let's go. I want to see for myself what this Qingfeng pavilion is truly made of." As soon as the words left your lips, Xiao Jie, Lu Yiming, and Luo Qingxue immediately appeared by your side. Do you all wish to come along and witness the spectacle? You cast a glance at them and ask. Lu Yiming scratches his head and says with a chuckle, "Cultivation is tiring. I wish to follow you out for a change of pace." With just one look, you see through their true intentions. It is clear that they have become addicted to the thrill of absolute dominance from their last encounter. Then, let us depart. You wave your hand indifferently and glance at the location on the map. In the next instant, your